Now, I'm excited to learn about this new startup out of Europe, certainly in a very similar kind of a business. It likens itself to the modern milkman. So please welcome Joris Beckers to the Signal stage to tell us about his company, Picnic. Joris, take it away.
Hi, John. Good to see you.
Good
to be back at P&G. I learned to walk at P&G. P&G had a phenomenal time. And sort of in 1999, I stumbled into the internet world when Amazon was still a little bookstore, and all is very different now today. And I built an e-commerce business, for a period, and then in 2015, and it's maybe nice to sort of set it up a little bit for Picnic. We had a very simple observation. And the observation was that many people are buying many things online, particularly what we would call in the retail space, non-food retail items. Very often these categories, 30-40% or so, are bought online in any Western country that you look at. Yet in food in 2015, it was kind of 1%. So we were intrigued by this sort of difference between 1% and 30-40% or so. And we started to take a closer look at in online food, and we did something very stupid. We drew on a piece of paper a picture or a diagram of what we thought a supermarket was, or a supercenter, whatever its name, a grocery store is, and we thought. Sorry, okay, I hear a little bit of echo, but we thought it is basically a fantastic system to move low-cost items from producers to consumers. It's probably the most successful retail format that has ever been invented in the 50s, 60s in the US, and then spread the world. I think it is, available in any country. It is cash generative. People love it, etc. And it more or less looks like this, with producers, warehouse, stores, and then consumers taking their cars towards the stores. And then online came on and started to emerge also in groceries. In 2015, there were many online startups in all sorts of sectors, and they had essentially, on a sort of schematic way, they had replaced the vehicle of the consumer by a vehicle of the supermarket, of the grocery store. So essentially, they had enlarged or made the supply chain a little bit longer, and therefore also the cost structure of the entire business a little bit bigger. And therefore, everyone developed kind of, let's say, premium niche type propositions with higher prices in some way or form, either by delivery fees or by product prices than you could get in store. And we became interested in the question if there would also be a possibility for another model that is more competitive towards the stores, that is actually more a mass market type model, like anybody goes to supermarkets. So we started exploring that idea, and we needed to go back to the, let's say, fundamental cost structure. If you don't change the cost structure, then you have no way of creating something similar than a supermarket is able to offer. And we had to think back of our long-term friend, the milkman. So once upon a time, we loved the service of the milkman. So in a way, we did not reinvent anything. We sort of recreated the milkman service in a kind of new way. And a milkman was a scheduled service. So not an on-demand type service, but a scheduled service that would come to you 3 or 4 times a week at sort of fixed times. And you could order milk and dairy products, etc. And now, of course, we can make that much more because it doesn't have to fit into the vehicle. But the concept of a let's say, scheduled service was very interesting to us. So that we set up because it's a much more, let's say, efficient way of getting to streets. So we basically deliver everyone in the same street all at the same time kind of service. And from that, we created what we now call the modern milkman, which is a similar type service that builds a bridge almost directly from producers to consumers, offering all the items that you can buy in a normal supermarket, of course. But the fundamental, let's say, logistical infrastructure is very similar to that of a milkman. And the milkman is very similar to a bus-type structure instead of the more taxi-like structures that, let's say, on-demand services are based on. And on that, we built a proposition that says all your groceries for the lowest price, free to your door. So something very similar to a supermarket without any additional cost and fantastic service brought to your door for free. And then also some sustainable way with small friendly electrical vehicles. And if I quickly browse you through the elements of the proposition, we have an app, and you can order anything you want that you could normally find in the supermarket. We have we call green fulfillment centers that save about 85% of the food waste that is typically happening in the supermarket, let's say supply chain stores and distribution centers. Then we have recreated something quite unique, which are sort of iconic vehicles, electric vehicles that are a little bit similar to milkman vehicles, but then in a modern version of it, that are optimized for inner city efficient, friendly, kind deliveries. And at the moment, we operate more than 1,500 of those vehicles across 3 countries in Europe. At the same time, we also observed that, let's say, in the logistical space, people tend to be a little bit more, let's say, efficiency focused than, let's say, hospitality focused. So by combining efficient, friendly electrical vehicles with hospitality-oriented people that would otherwise maybe work in restaurants, bars, or terraces or something like that, hotels, we created a whole new type delivery experience that is very different from what you regularly find. Now, the bus, of course, has disadvantages. It doesn't leave. You can't order it any second. It works kind of on a schedule, but it also has advantages. It knows when it is at the next stop, like a metro or anything else, precisely. So the service is minute precise. There's no waiting time whatsoever. It knows precisely that it will be with you at 4:09, and the service is of course free, so you can see it, and you can see it arrive on your app, as we know from many other apps as well. It is particularly servicing families with children that live busy lives. So I like to say, let's say the policeman married to the teacher is now also able to order online. They also have 2 kids and a busy life. It's not only the more upmarket people that lead busy lives, etc. And this experience has created a whole new sort of very local, hyper-local, neighborhood by neighborhood type experience, where there's a sort of unique sense of community that the local milkman is back, and we leverage that a bit. So our runners, the people that operate the vehicles, often go out to the children, and the children obviously love that if we bring them a little ice cream. And they're also waiting, let's say, for us, because they know every Wednesday, 6 o'clock or whatever, Picnic will arrive in my street, and it's nice to watch. So these are little magical moments, if you want. This has led to very high levels of customer satisfaction. So people are very happy. This all started in 2015 in just 1 city. Today we operate in 150 cities across Holland, Germany, and France, and we're expanding that every week. And what is quite remarkable is the level of penetration that it generates. So in this chart, you see that in a given city, we will get 50% of all the households that live in that city to sign up within 2 years. So these are kind of penetration levels that we have never seen before. And this is simply because this is much more accessible for a much broader group of people. And then we also know that once you've ordered more than 5 times with Picnic, that you will never leave anymore. So you keep on ordering year after year or week after week. On average, people order with us more than 40 times per year, so which is nearly every week. With that, we achieve very significant market shares. As I said, when we launched, the whole online market was about 1-2% or so. Now, depending where you look, it's 7, 8, 10%. And then typically in a city, if we operate more than 2 years in that city, we will have somewhere between 60 and 80% market share, simply because we address the mass market. We have to do very little in marketing. People are basically coming to us for the proposition. They see the little vehicles go through their streets, and they're keen to participate. And obviously, the pandemic has helped, as you can see in this chart. So we have waiting lists that are quite significant of people that would like to start using the service in the cities that we operate in. We have much longer or bigger waiting list in all the cities that we're not yet in, which are many, many more. We only operate in about 50% of Holland, about 5% of Germany, and about 1% of France or so there. So there's a world to win still. But yet we've grown the business, let's say in 5 years, from sort of 0 to $1 billion or so in revenues. So it's been quite a steep ride over time, and still growing about 100% or so year on year. Now, another interesting aspect is obviously people, consumers, families have many more issues than just groceries. And since we arrive at people's home every week anyhow, we thought, can we leverage that moment to do something else? And one of the sort of more painful and simple ideas is returns, typically more for, let's say, fashion products that are difficult because you have to go back to the DHL or FedEx or any type point, or they have to come to you to pick it up. But how about if we would take those parcels back for you at no cost and bring them back in our supply chain and then bring them back to DHL or wherever they came from? We have virtually zero extra cost. We are there anyway, anyhow, every week. For the consumer, it's much easier and it's much cheaper for the merchants that actually use FedEx and so on. And obviously, it's a lot greener than having 10 other vehicles go to the same street in the same day. And that brings us a little bit with sort of the summary of what we try to do. We think of it as, yes, it is groceries, it's feeding your family, and it has to happen every week or multiple times per week. But if we can also enhance them to a bit more magical moments for those families, and in their communities create, smarter, greener, and cleaner cities. Basically creating a completely new infrastructure to get items from producers like P&G or many others to consumers in a completely new way, radically rethought of what, basically what the function was, the basic function of a supermarket that was a self-service supermarket as it was, let's say, invented in the 50s or 60s. Now, this kind of sums up in a simple, short way what Picnic is all about. We're not in the US, so you might be less, or I'm sure you're less familiar with what we do, but it is nevertheless very nice to be with you on this stage today, John.
Of course, thank you. And I just have one very, very short question for you, Joris. You're not in the United States yet, but do you see the U.S. market or other markets as potential places where you might expand? Does Neelam need to worry, the president of Instacart that we just spoke to?
Yes. No, nobody needs to worry, because there will be plenty of room in the online groceries market as we see it expand to very significant size, basically. And you only have to look at Asia to see a little bit, a glimpse of the future if you want. Yeah. And we will definitely be very interested in the US and do work on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being part of Signal, another illustrious alumnus of P&G. And unfortunately, we need to move on. So again, Joris, thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you.